Yeah, I quite like it myself. That would be CP or Willis Greedia's work right there, and I'm very appreciative for him making that for me. But today we have a lovely interview with my two illustrious guests here, Steve DeWinter and Renee Miller, who are two of the creators of the Babysitter interactive game or audio drama, if you will.
Yeah, interactive audio drama. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will give you a chance to explain yourselves. No, introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I was about to say, go ahead, Renee. All right. So I'm Steve DeWinter, and I'm an author. I've written over 40 plus novels, mostly in the thriller and action adventure genre. And I had good success with that. I enjoyed it, but I wanted to do something more, something different, and just something new that no one else had ever done. And so I looked around and came across the interactive thing. I don't know if anybody remembers those old choose your own adventure novels from the 80s and everything. I enjoyed those. I have a whole stack of them still and everything. I'm like, I'll do something like that. And it kind of extended beyond just doing text, but switching it over into the full audio realm so that we were able to craft a full audio drama experience with multiple character voices and sound effects and music. And we've actually pushed it to the point where we're now in full spatial audio. So if you put headphones on, sounds are coming from all around you, above and below, not just right, left stereo
3D
and everything. So, and when I reached out and I said, oh, we got Halloween's coming up. So I reached out to Renee, one of the writers that we've been crafting stories for this and everything, and said, hey, you got anything for Halloween? And she said, actually, I've been working on something. So she got that to me. We produced that. And so that's why we're now here. And thank you very much, Dice, for having us on your show and having
certainly
come on here and everything. So to help promote the Babysitter and everything, which was a lot of fun to make.
I imagine so. Sometimes I can pick up on how much someone has fun in the process of making something. And it felt like you guys were having fun with this. So, Renee, you are responsible for this story. Please explain.
It's all her fault. It's all her fault.
I am. I'm actually a screenwriter by nature, and I focus mainly on horrors and thrillers. And it was probably, 2 years ago, Steve, that you reached out with this opportunity. And although I was very terrified of it, I figured that it was, would be a fun step in, the same realm as screenwriting, but, just different. And so we started off with doing reimagined fairy tale stories, which I had fun with, but my heart lies with horror. And, so Steve, asked me if I had something, and I had already been thinking about this story. And so that's kind of how it came to be. And I think this was probably the quickest that I've ever written anything in my life.
Nice.
Just because we were kind of on a tight deadline, because I think he approached me like mid-September.
Yeah, I think it was like September 6th or something. Because September 9th, I think it was probably like the 8th or the 9th of September. Because one of the things that we're doing with this is utilizing the AI technology that's used by Hollywood so that one actor's voice can be transformed into many different actors.
Okay.
So that we could do a much more streamlined process rather than trying to gather all these people together to do something for a project that I don't have a big budget for right now yet. So I needed to do something. So I actually got my hands on the same technology that Lucas Films uses, and they did it for The Mandalorian and everything, to make Luke Skywalker's voice young again,
right,
and everything to match how he sounded in the original movies for that. And so I got my hands on that, and I said, well, now that I spent all this money, I need to do something with it. So I said, Renee, Halloween's coming. You love horror. Give me something. So
you have to have something.
And she gave me something amazing. I mean, I loved all the different endings on it. It was very much every time I hit an ending, I kept saying to myself, but this is the beginning of a big story.
Cliffhanger, no.
You know, and the endings ranged so much from, you know, the kids disappear to zombie attack to just all sorts of great stuff.
I was channeling my inner Twilight Zone to come up with those endings.
It was so much fun.
That's cool. I like the games or stories that could take different routes, because some of the games that I have played the most on my channel for full Let's Plays are like that, the butterfly effect kind of stuff from the same people who did Until Dawn. They made a lot of games like that, and I think those are quite fascinating. So this was very cool in that same way. You just have to kind of sit there and listen and go, oh god, which choice is not going to get me killed?
Good luck with that one.
This
This
is
is a
true.
horror story.
I think it was either the first or the second ending that I got where it's like, oh, I'm dead. Okay, cool.
Get used
All right.
to it.
Perfect. All right, next.
I think out of like all the 31, 32 endings that were in that, I think there's like maybe only one or two where everybody makes it out alive.
Oh, good. I feel less bad.
You know, that's a horror story for you. You know, just
Yeah.
even the main characters can die. So
Yeah.
And I think that makes it more interesting. You're less like, oh, they can't die, and they're dead. Oh.
yeah.
So, if anybody's curious, of course, about this specific game, there is a link in the description so that you guys can check that out. Preferably after we're done talking, of course. Contain your excitement, please. But thank you for the introductions. And it's Steve's fault that this all happened. This is, I believe, technically speaking, the first interview I've conducted. So I blame him.
So
The Babysitter is, I think that's a pretty good title and basis for a horror audio, because it's one that a lot of horror fans like myself are rather familiar with. Like, when
Have you checked the children?
Exactly. Exactly. So it can go so many different ways and cover stuff that we are familiar with, but also take different turns with it. So I kind of like that. Is there a way, I know you kind of did this, but is there a way without revealing too much that you could summarize the inspiration behind the Babysitter story?
oh my
That's
goodness.
for you, Renee.
Well, you know, honestly, you know, part of it is just because of my horror background, but you know, as a girl growing up, that was like your main source of income as a teenager was, you know, to go and babysit these kids. And while, you know, back then I didn't really think about it, now looking back, it's like you left a 14-year-old in charge of your kids by themselves. What were you thinking?
Oh, no pressure. It's fine. It was the 80s, man.
So I think I really kind of drew a lot of that into the story, and just thinking of things that could have gone wrong while I was, you know, babysitting. You know, I mean, who knows? Aliens could have come and snatched kids. We don't know.
It could have happened.
Yeah. You know, and having a 6-year-old daughter myself, I don't think I could leave her with somebody that wasn't family, or, you know, that wasn't mature enough to handle situations that might arise. So it was a lot of fun to think of the different things that could happen to, you know, a young adult that's, you know, out babysitting, you know, kids that are a little mischievous. Yeah, and you know, just think of all the crazy things that could happen while a teenager is watching kids by themselves for the first time.
Yeah. There's a lot of options.
Yes.
Right. And that's where this new software that I have access to came into play, is that I said, well, let's change up the babysitter, because, you know, back in the 80s, you know, the girls were all the babysitters.
Yeah.
Right.
But now it's the 2020s, and, you know, anyone could be the babysitter if they're being a babysitter now. And so I took the opportunity to make it so that you could select as you're playing the babysitter, whether you want to play it as a girl or as a guy, and the voice changes from a girl's pitch to a guy's pitch based upon what you selected.
Yeah.
So that you have the choice, and I also took the opportunity to make the cover for the babysitter transition back and forth between having a girl's face or a boy's face in the shattered glass on the cover, just to be even more unique and different with it.
I noticed that. I noticed both of those when I selected, because I tried, I believe, a few as like a female-centered character, and then a few as a male-centered character, and I could kind of see how the AI came in with that. And I think that's pretty cool how it can adapt in that way.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. It was part of the innovation of what I'm quietly innovating here in obscurity.
We have the technology.
Yes.
Okay, so you kind of covered the inspiration behind and creation of the story. So, I mean, there's quite a few different endings, and I know I didn't get them all myself, and I'm something of a completionist, so I was trying. But what would you get individually? What would you say are each of your favorite paths?
Oh, that's a good question, because I really enjoyed writing every single one of them. I think that my favorite one is the kids going into the backyard and being surrounded by the friend doppelganger.
Oh yeah.
That one I really enjoyed writing that ending and figuring out how to get to that. So I would say that is probably my favorite path.
Fair enough.
I've got two favorite ones, but because it came out from the side where I did the audio production for it and did the layering of music and sound effects and everything, there was at one point where a zombie attacks, and I really enjoyed the whole sound of the zombie banging against the door, and then it crashes through the door. And you mentioned earlier, Dice, the kids are, or Renee, you mentioned that the kids were kind of, not the easiest kids to deal with. We had the little kid in there. He's all cool, a zombie. It's like, no, it's not cool. Everyone get out of here.
No.
And then another scene where if you choose to not do the babysitting job and you go off and do something else, you end up at the movie theater, and then your mom shows up. And the sounds where I was able to, using spatial audio, it sounds like you're in the movie theater where you've got the sound coming from the theater in front of you, but then you hear your mom going, I know you're in here. And then you got people going, shut up. And hey, you shut up. No, you shut up. Don't you tell me to shut up. I said, Billy, I know your mom. I'm having lunch with her on Thursday, and all sorts of stuff. And, you shut up. You're ruining the movie. And she's like, it's a movie about a vampire substitute teacher. It was ruined when they wrote it. No, shut up, And so I had a lot of fun crafting that scene, as well as the zombie attack scene and everything. So you're coming at it from the side of building the experience so that you're living it. When you read it, it's one thing, but then when you're actually hearing it, it's like, whoa, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
It definitely makes it more immersive. I mean, we're in an era of technology, so to speak, now where VR is quite prevalent. It had its peak, and I still think that it's doing rather well. But having a VR set myself, that really opened up a lot of doors when it comes to storytelling. So audio has kind of had to catch up with that a little bit. Was it at all difficult to try to balance interest in audio compared to what we have visually?
So I think this is a question for me.
Yes.
Sure.
I had going, as I thought about why audio, why aren't I trying to do like a VR thing? I mean, I have an Oculus Quest and I love that thing. I'm in it every day for about an hour every day. I love VR. I hate the real world. Okay, I said it. So, but I said, why did I keep going towards audio? And, I'd made a movie. I've done a 90-minute action adventure film and everything. And that was a lot of fun, but it was really hard to get everyone costumes and feed everyone and find locations and the lighting and all that stuff. And going all the way back to when I was 8 years old, I had 2 tape recorders, and I would sit there and I would edit my own little radio shows and everything. I would set the microphone up Saturday mornings and record Looney Tunes for the hour that they were on, for the Bugs Bunny hour. And then I would spend the rest of the weekend listening to it, even though all you hear from Bugs Bunny and or the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote is that's all you hear. But I could visualize everything because I'd seen it. And then I made my book report for high school. I made a radio commercial for Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy. And I think the teacher wrote the comments on that. What? Question mark.
It was too ahead of its time. Oh no.
And then I went to, in college, we had a class where we had to make some performance for the class. And out of everybody who did stuff, I was the only one that made a radio drama about a mailman who, when he comes home, if he's still in his uniform, his own dog attacks him. And we basically did like the Honeymooners kind of a comedy half-hour skit, and it was a radio show and everything. So I always gravitated towards the audio, even though I could see pretty much mostly fine. Got glasses, but I can still see. But I really go towards the audio, and I like creating that. And so that's why we created this metaverse system, the Hidden World Metaverse, which is where the Babysitter lives exclusively, because it's a full audio augmented reality experience for you. That it builds your environment around you. It's not just stereo left and right. Some of our earlier products are just stereo left and right, but now we've pushed out to full spatial audio, 3D sound and everything, so that we get that full experience. And you don't get that unless you're wearing a VR headset where you can look around. And I mean, it's such an immersive experience being in a VR thing. And, I had VR glasses going back into the late 90s and early 2000s, back when they were $1,500-$1,800 to buy.
Really?
They didn't do a very good job, but I still had a pair and everything. And I had to trick the computer into making it work. So I've always loved that aspect, but I've always gravitated towards the audio aspect of it, so radio is not dead.
It just needs to be resuscitated once in a while. It's all right.
Exactly. And that's the thing that, podcasts brought back the whole talk radio, which was, limited to, PNR, a couple of stations that did talk stuff, but,
True.
Now it's all back again. And here we are.
Yeah, it's had something of a, I guess, second life in a way, with podcasts, because there's stuff that I've seen even just on Shudder, the streaming service Shudder, that's like a podcast, but it's also an audio drama or storytelling that you just listen to. People are starting to, or have been for a while, realized that you can go about whatever it is you're doing, but be a little bit more entertained and engaged if you're listening to something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool that there are people like you who are kind of bringing a fresh take on something that's seen as very vintage.
Right. But, we've pushed it into the realm of, because I like to say our elevator pitch for what we do is Pokemon Go meets Choose Your Own Adventure meets audio drama. Yeah. Because the Babysitter, like Renee mentioned, we had a really quick, short thing because I just out of the blue said, got anything for Halloween? And so we didn't build any movement elements into it, but a lot of our other stories have where you actually, when you travel in the story, you actually must travel around out in the real world so that you arrive at the next location where the next part of the bits of the story happens, so that it's really an augmented reality thing where it's taking place out there in the real world all around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that element because it's the concept of
it has happened.
Yeah.
She warned us. Her internet, she's satellite internet, so sometimes she
Yep.
disappears for a moment and then she's back.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's
happens.
okay. We
Right.
knew it would happen.
Even when it's just audio. Speaking of, I was saying I think that's cool. I think that's a cool element of it because with radio stories, you would just sit there and listen. But with this way of doing it, like you said, Pokemon Go-esque, you go to where the character is supposed to go, and it makes it even more immersive that way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's see. Now you did mention how you kind of got into the interactive audio storytelling format. What is the most difficult part about figuring something like that out?
The most difficult part was developing the process so that it wouldn't come across as a one-off thing each time we did it, so that we could actually have an easy flow, because I wanted to make it so that when I brought in writers like Renee, and we have another writer, Cassie, who writes in other genres and everything, when I brought them in, I didn't want them to have to break from the way that they normally write when writing an interactive audio adventure, because I know that a lot of the other companies out there that do interactive fiction and everything, they always say, oh, this is for writers, there's not much code. But when I look at it, I don't see the story, I see all the code. And I'm like, that just doesn't work for me as a writer. I've written 40 novels. I'm a writer. I'm not a coder. I don't do the coding thing, which was difficult for me because I'm not a coder, but I still figured it all out.
Yeah.
We learn as we go.
Let's figure out. I'm a good Googler. That's what I am. So, but trying to come up with a process, which I'm good at. I'm good at taking a process and streamlining it down to its simplest process so that we can go, let's take a process that we're familiar with. And, that's what they're doing. Renee, with this one, it was very much branches out to 32 different endings. It's just every choice you make takes you completely in a different path. But what we're also doing with future projects that we have is while not still a linear story, there is a linear story progression depending upon the choices you make, where there's a linear story in there so that we can also have the full story experience of as if it were a fiction podcast, where you listen to that and everything happens, but the authors have chosen for you what paths you take. We also do that, but then we have additional content based upon other choices you make and everything, so that it fits in with the natural order of how you write a story, so that we're not just haphazard, random, just writing whatever. Our stories at their base level are written by real storytellers that write linear stories and know how those stories are written well. That's why I have Renee, who's a screenwriter, and Cassie, who writes long fiction novels and everything, because that's a skill.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just writing something and then what happens next and here's two different choices and they go whatever they do. It's a story that actually tells a properly told story. A well-told story told well.
Well, yeah. And, with the writing process, the first thing that I do is just write that linear story. And then once that's done, then I go back and figure out where we're going to put the choices in and which direction they're going to go. So, so that it is, somewhat cohesive, and not just like the old choose your own adventure books that just kind of had no plot, no story, no really
right.
nothing.
Do you have breakfast or orange juice? And you either are abducted by aliens or you are training elephants at the circus. What was that?
The orange juice led to aliens, of course.
I loved them. I enjoyed them. But I know from a storyteller standpoint, I want to tell a more cohesive story so that you can, when you play this and depending upon your choices, might become the hero of a movie. An audio movie, but a movie nonetheless.
It's a movie in your own head.
Yeah.
It still counts. That's the other thing is the added element of something like a choose your own audio adventure is that you're left to come up with the visuals, so to speak. It's your imagination combined with the imagination of everybody who created the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
we
of
get
course,
you most of the way there. The rest is up to
yeah,
you.
Yeah.
it's up to you, my friend. Good luck.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me with one of my audio adventures that it was a bloody, gory audio adventure. When the only thing that happened was the narrator said, "You're torn apart by wolves." That's all it says. But they had a complaint. It was too bloody and gory. But that's all that was written. Everything else was you.
That's up to you, my friend. It's kind of like what my brother says, which is, "Hey, I just said it. It's up to you how you take it." And it's funny that you mention feedback like that, because the first thing that pops into my mind is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's seen as like one of the bloodiest horror films, but it's really not. You don't see hardly anything, but people were walking out going, "Oh my god, the gore, the gore."
It all happened off camera.
Yeah.
It did. You were just given the implication, and you
Right.
filled in the rest, whether you wanted to or
Your
not.
brains are very powerful in that respect.
It is. Yeah, sometimes it's really scary. Kind of piggybacking, shall we say, off of what I just mentioned there. Were there any specific movies, horror movies or otherwise, that came to mind while you were going through the process of making The Babysitter?
You know what? Not really. You know, I've seen so many horror movies and read so many horror books. They all kind of have become an amalgam in my brain that just is constantly, you know, feeding my imagination with everything that I write. So, and actually, I started thinking about this story as I was writing one of my horror screenplays. So it, you know, it's kind of one of those things where as you're writing one thing, it leads into all these other ideas and you're having to quickly write things down so that you don't
forget them.
Yeah. And, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, all the ideas that I ever get are all horror. It's all horror stuff. And I try to branch out and write other things, but my brain is always going back to the horror.
I understand. That's not a bad thing here. It's not a bad thing. I swear. We enjoy that very much.
Yes,
I sympathize greatly as well, because while I'm certainly not as prolific as either one of you guys, I have my own stories that I'll write, like little short stories, or eventually, hopefully, maybe novels. And I always keep a little book of ideas so that I can write those down. And every time it's like, well, I'll just highlight the ones that are horror, and I end up highlighting the whole page going, okay, never mind, this is just horror. Okay.
Yep, I'm right there with you, Dice.
Yeah, the worst part is I was going through some old folders and everything on my computer, going, you know, looking at my old story garden that I have, you know, with the old seeds and ideas and everything. And I saw one, I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. And I double click on it. And the only thing it says was the same name of the file. I'm like, oh, who knows what that was?
I'm sure it was a great idea.
That's what that was. That was 2 a.m.
The 2 a.m. ideas. Yeah.
It was great. I had to write it down. And I'll never forget it. I'll just say, leave with this.
Gotta write details, god damn it. Otherwise the brain's going, I don't know. I don't know.
That wasn't me.
I don't know who did that. That wasn't me. But I think that's what's really fun, at least to me, about horror, is that as a genre, it seems so simplistic at surface level. And of course, you hear it all the time from certain groups.
Complainers.
Yes, so haters. It's, you know, what's so fun about this? It's just gory. It's horrific. How can you sleep at night? And I'm just sitting over here going, well, what about the characters? What about everything that they go through, the story, the creativity behind this? This is, even to some, dare I say, therapeutic to either express it or watch it. and relate to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, how do you sleep at night? Isn't that the point of a horror movie? Not
Yeah.
letting you sleep that night?
Yeah. Have
I
we
mean,
learned nothing?
the worst part of Saw was realizing that when the kid says there's monsters in the closet, it's real.
Yes, that doll that you have.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. It's all right. All right. So, I know that Renee, you mentioned this, and I think you mentioned this as well, Steve. If there's anything you can divulge as far as this goes, I know sometimes it's a little too early, or you just don't want to say until it's out. Are there any future projects that you guys are working on that you are excited to talk about?
I am actually and Steve doesn't even know this.
Oh.
I am currently working on the next horror one, which is going to be a survive the zombie apocalypse,
Okay.
where you are actually an employee in the mall, which is where the zombie apocalypse starts. So yeah, that's the next one. I'm hoping to have it done here soon, or at least have the linear part done soon, so that Steve can get a look at it. I have a whole list of other ones that are in my brain that I'm constantly thinking about of what to do next. But because they aren't really solidified yet, I don't think I can really talk about those ones.
Right.
If you talk about it too soon, then you're never gonna do
I'll
it.
lose
Yeah.
all the momentum on it.
The brain goes, well, that's it.
Well, I've already talked about it, so I guess it's done.
Yeah. So yeah, I am working on the next one, and I've decided, and Steve knows, I really do like writing the horror ones and kind of the jump scares and having fun with those. So I think I'll probably continue on that path for a while.
I like
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I'm getting a
was a
little
lot
George Romero vibes. Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun crafting the audio for horror, because even in a visual horror movie, it's all about the audio.
Yeah,
True.
So we're able to do a lot of that stuff and have fun with that and everything. And as for me, what I'm working on is, and Dice, we talked about this before we started the live stream, is I've got all this gunk in my nose. It's not a cold or anything. I've got surgery scheduled for next month to cut it all out. And I always sound like I have a clogged nose. So I'm right now I'm casting for the performance actor, because like I said, I now have the technology where we can take one performer and make them all the characters and everything, so they all sound unique and different. It just takes the performance to really lock in that difference for an interactive murder mystery.
Ooh.
Where it's Pokemon Go meets Clue meets audio drama, where you're going around and the murder has happened and you're going around and looking at the clues and trying to solve it, figure out who done it and how. We've got quirky cast of characters, just like your cozy mysteries and everything, but with a sci-fi bend to it, because it's set just the day after tomorrow, where we've got like citywide monitoring. So all the crimes are getting solved. And so they get rid of all the detectives, because anytime a crime happens, it's captured on camera somewhere and they immediately know who did it and they can go and arrest them. Well, the system shuts down for 10 minutes and somebody's killed. So now they need to bring in the only detective who skated by the big layoff because she was out on medical leave after a car accident. So she's in a wheelchair. Hence the player shows up. We are their mobility assistant to push their wheelchair around as they're going around trying to solve the crime.
Okay.
And it's another one that's GPS enabled. So as you travel over to the crime scene, you literally get out and walk around your block, and then you arrive at the crime scene and everything for that. But I'm also updating the game engine so that for people who have mobility issues, or they're bedridden, or they're just too lazy to get off the couch, you can disable the mobility aspect of it. Even though that's what makes us unique, I didn't want to keep leaving out people who had mobility issues.
Right.
from being able to experience our adventures. So you can turn off the mobility, and anytime there's a travel aspect, it says you've arrived for that. And I hope people don't just sit on the couch and experience these, but actually get out there and experience them how they are intended. But I want everybody to be able to experience it without leaving anyone out.
Yeah.
But that's what we're working on next is Murder in the Metaverse series. So
I'm very intrigued. That sounds fun.
I will let you know when it's out. You can probably even get a preview of it before it's fully released.
Okay, well, cool. We are very privileged. That's one of the I guess you would say genres or subgenres that's a favorite of my mom's is like a murder mystery thing. So maybe I'll get her involved in listening to that and figuring that one out. She might like that.
She might enjoy it because I've made it so that we've got all the quirky characters and everybody's a suspect and everybody has a reason they could have done it.
All right.
And coming from an action thriller writing aspect of it, trying to write a murder mystery with clues and everything was very, very difficult for me because that's not my writing. There's a lot of people that do that well, and I think I did a good job with it. But my hope is to show that this is a viable experience and take the success of this and get in some proper mystery writers to craft some stories and experiences for us as well.
Okay.
For that. And then we've got Renee that's hitting the horror genre hard. So we're going to have lots of good, sounds like we're going to have lots of good experiences for that.
Let's hope so. Hopefully,
yes.
Hopefully they like it.
Well, what did you think, Dice?
I liked The Babysitter, and as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't get all of the endings, which I don't think is a bad thing because that means that there's incentive to go back and just keep trying and keep figuring things out. And that's always fun. Replayability, as they say, is really important for things like that. I do like, and I know that the whole aspect of you don't want people to sit on the couch and just be lazy about it, but I really do like the concept of you trying to be inclusive with such stories because I have a number of friends who mobility is not the best or just not an option, so for them to still be able to enjoy it is really, really cool.
Yeah, so I'm going to get the current stories we have, which are locked into movement. I'm getting the engine updated on those so that they are more inclusive and everything.
Very good, very good. Yeah, see? Now you all have no excuse now.
Yeah, exactly.
You all have no excuse. The link is in the bio once again. And there's, clearly, as you heard, there's more to come.
Yeah, we're a small team. We're building our library slowly, but eventually we will have a lot of good stuff. We got some good stuff now.
True. There is stuff to explore. And that's always fun. Gives you a chance to explore that while other stuff is in the works.
Yes.
Exactly.
At least that's how I look at it. So. All right. Kind of piggybacking in a way, once again, off of the current subject, a slight diversion, since this is what I tend to talk about quite a lot on my channel. What would be some of your favorite horror movies and or stories? Not necessarily inspiration, just ones you like.
Well, I'll go first because you probably have a lot more than I do. I have a small section of horror stuff, leaning more towards action horror and everything. But the one that always stuck with me, and I did that quote earlier, was "He knows you're alone."
Oh,
that one has always, have you checked the children? Still sends chills up my spine. And when Renee said, "I've got something for you called The Babysitter," the chills went up right up my spine. Remembering that show, it just stuck with me so much and everything. And then, in the modern day, anything that I don't do a lot of horror, but the most recent that I really liked was The Butterfly Effect.
Okay.
That was good. And I've seen the first 4 of the Saw movies, but they killed Jigsaw at the end of 3, so I'm done.
Oh, well, they're supposed to be bringing him back, though,
Yeah, but that's just because they're going back in time, unless they cloned him. Uh-oh.
Oh, no, cloning, please. Please don't. Yeah, Christine. Yes, that's exactly what I had
Ah,
mentioned earlier. As a matter of
yes.
fact, that's one of the first things that came to my mind. But that's just because Babysitter, and automatically I'm like, oh no, Carol Kane, no.
Well, as for me with horror books, the first one I ever wrote when I was in, I think in eighth, or read when I was an eighth grader, was Dean Koontz's Watchers. So that's always one that is near and dear to my heart because it really kind of got me, one, into the horror genre, and two, got me to want to be a writer. So anything by Dean Koontz up until about 2000 are ones that I like to read. After that, he kind of got more into the thriller genre, which isn't as great.
It's an acquired taste, and kind of a
Yeah, I mean,
genre, but
I will still buy every single book that he writes, but I don't get as much satisfaction from reading them anymore. As far as movies, it's really tough for me because as a screenwriter, I'm always watching with an eye towards, structure and, you know, predictability. And my fiance hates watching anything with me because I always predict what's going to happen because I'm so familiar with the formatting and the pacing and everything like that. So it's hard for me to give you a favorite movie because I think probably about the last 10 years I haven't really enjoyed movies as a audience member, but more as a critic.
fair.
So, that's kind of hard. Although, I just watched The Black Phone and I did enjoy that one a lot. I really kind of want to go and read the short story by Joe Hill to see how it kind of works. And actually, I think I just watched one of your videos on the 40 things on the Black Phone, behind things that we didn't know, which I really enjoyed that. So, yeah, there were some very interesting facts in that.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you mentioned the Black Phone because any excuse that I can get to talk about it, I'm happy for. But yeah, thank you for taking a look at that video. That one I was surprised by because I had not too long after the Black Phone came out, I did my full review, of course. And the way that I pick out facts, it can take me a while because it's not just me who's figured these things out. So I'm kind of gathering them. And when something's so fresh, there's not too much to talk about. So I checked shortly before that facts video came out, and I went, oh my God, there's 40.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's such an interesting story to me. That's my favorite from last year. And it's, I think, one of the reasons why it's so interesting, and maybe this is the same for you, is that it has and could still actually happen. And that's terrifying if you're a kid, especially.
Well, and one of the things with that movie too is that I live in Colorado, and to have it set in northern Colorado, kind of where my neighborhood is, really kind of hit me in the like, oh my gosh, this could happen here. And then it's like, sorry, hon, you cannot come, you can't go outside and play, you have to stay inside.
No, you're not gonna walk to your friend's house. No, you're not.
No, you can't go to the park today without me. So I would have to say, the Black Phone was probably my favorite from last year.
And I have to agree exactly with what you said, Renee, because I was born and grew up in Colorado near the Denver area. So every time there is a decent horror movie that's set in Colorado, I'm thrilled because, of course, there's The Shining. Everybody will bring up The Shining. And there's one that I reviewed but had the misfortune of finding out was filmed and set in Colorado, and that's called Elves. I do not recommend it. it's such a terrible film. It's only good to laugh at, to be quite honest.
Okay.
And that's essentially what I did through my whole review, is just tear it apart. But when the Black Phone came out after this whole elves experience, I was like, yes, please, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank God. It's also kind of nostalgic to me because it's based in the 70s and my parents are, kids of the 70s.
Yeah.
So vicarious nostalgia in a way.
Yeah. Because I'm at the tail end of the 70s, but even into the early 80s, it was crazy because I'm like, oh my gosh, it just brings back my childhood with the playing the baseball at the beginning and everything like that. So that might be the reason why I loved it so much, is because it did kind of bring back that nostalgia from growing up out here.
Yeah.
And still living here.
Yeah, and to me it felt very authentic as far as the time period and the location. So good marks for everybody who was involved in the Black Phone. So well done. Yes. Very good, very good. And that's a very good point, Christine. Yes, Colorado in film, especially horror, The Shining, and now the Black Phone. So encouraging future writers and filmmakers, do some more Colorado stuff.
Well,
man.
I am currently writing one based on a Bigfoot story. And it is going to be set here in Colorado. So hopefully we can get it optioned and get it on the screen, and they'll actually maybe film it here.
Hey, cool. I'm here for it. And I know my dad, I mentioned you're going to be making stuff for everybody in my family here. Because my mom would be interested in the murder mystery, most likely. My dad is a big Bigfoot and alien person, so we're going to get everybody covered.
Yes.
Excellent. Yes. Right. I have maybe some questions. Maybe. If anybody in the chat, I know I already mentioned it in the chat itself, but if anybody has any questions for Renee or Steve or both, please let us know in the chat and I'll be sure to bring those up. Thank you. And I wanted to, before I forget again, you mentioned Dean Koontz.
Yes.
That's rather funny because that is an author that my mom likes as well.
Oh.
She's a very much Stephen King, Dean Koontz kind of person.
Yes.
So I usually blame her for kind of gateway into horror for me. So
that's great.
I grew up watching every Saturday afternoon on TV. They would have Creature Feature, Chiller Diller. They keep changing names to make it seem fresh, but they would have the old horror films from the 60s and early 70s that they would play back to back every Saturday. And my mom was a big fan of those. And so every Saturday after the cartoons were done, it was Chiller Diller Creature Feature time.
Yeah. I'm glad, as far as kind of similar to that, like the horror hosts, I'm glad that there are still horror hosts who are out there now hosting. Just like Sven Gulli is someone that my dad especially likes to watch, and every once in a while he'll be like, hey Dice, look, there's something that Sven Gulli's going to be showing on tonight. I'm like, okay, well, I'll see if I can't tune in, thank you. And of course Elvira, who doesn't love Elvira. A little bit of Joe Bob Briggs having returned. Yes.
Yeah.
That almost, in a way, that almost ties back to radio, because that's kind of where a lot of people got started. Yeah. And then it became a TV thing.
Yeah, all the super dramatic, the organ, the shadow knows.
I'm sure that was real fun. Turn the volume all the way up, scare the kids. Come on.
Exactly.
All right, so you guys talked about your future upcoming projects in which you did want and could talk about. That's totally fine. I understand. We don't want to talk about too much because that'll just deter the brain. At least that's how it works for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to let everybody know as far as where they can find you, like social media, websites, and stuff like that, just to keep up to date?
I think that would probably you, Steve.
Yeah, well, the best I really don't do the social media thing. I mean, what was it, 10 years ago, everyone was doing a blog, and so I
Yeah.
went and I created a blog, and I have a single post on it, and it says, I have nothing to say. And that's my entire blog.
Brilliant. It's artistic.
You know, I don't hang out on Twitter or Facebook or anything. It's a matter of I'm always just posting stuff to hiddenworld.icu. Ooh, see what I did there? hiddenworld.icu. And as new products come up, they just show up on there, and you know, you can just check out the app and hit the refresh at the top to say any new experiences, and they'll just pop in when they show up. But you can reach me through there. There's a contact button if you have any questions or anything for there. There's a contact that will send an email to me, and you know, I'm an old guy, so it's all about the email or pigeon. You know, send a note on pigeon leg to me.
We will send an owl. Yes.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, I'm not real good at keeping up on my social media.
We're too busy working over here,
yes,
creating great stories for you to experience.
They're doing everything for you. They have no time to do all this social media shit.
There's a great time suck of social media now.
Yes.
That's all right. That's probably I always see in some instances of people saying, "Well, I don't really have social media." Fair enough. There's a lot of instances that I've experienced just on my own where I'm like, "Yeah, maybe that's for the best." So that's fair. Yeah, but you guys, as I mentioned many times before, and we will continue to mention this, there is a link to the website that Steve just mentioned in the description, so you guys can check that out at your leisure. And keep an eye out for new stuff that's coming out, because we have heard there is new stuff on the way, which I'm very intrigued by. So
slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely. It's all a process.
And don't call me Shirley.
You can't rush this, you know? You can't rush this genius. It's all very, very in-depth, and I don't even want to try to imagine everything that goes into it, because I have trouble just writing scripts for my own videos. We're not going to go there.
Well, now that the craziness of the holidays is finally over, hopefully I can get it out soon, because I've got a wedding that I'm trying to plan.
Ooh.
As well, on top of everything else. So I would like to get it out sooner rather than later, because if it takes too long, it's going to get sucked into everything else, and probably won't be until the summer.
That happens every once in a while.
Yeah,
horror is not just for October. It's year round.
It's a lifestyle, darling, you know?
Yes. It's not a holiday, it's a lifestyle.
Yes, it's just we get really excited around October. That's it.
Yeah.
Because that's when it's cool to be into horror, you know?
That's
when you're not a weirdo.
Weird, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm always a weirdo.
This is true. This is also a lifestyle, you see.
Yes.
It's fine. Takes a lot of practice, maybe not so much for some, but that's all right. It's all a process. All right. So once again, I will let everybody who is watching know that if you do have any questions, now is most certainly the time to let us know before I must let both Steve and Renee go, because as you have heard, they're very busy people. They've got stuff to do.
Oh, this has been so much fun to chat with you, Dice.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure, of course. I'm glad I could do this because, as I said, you've christened the channel with this first interview. So I want to do more interviews. You guys helped kind of push me to do that. So I appreciate that. We're working on it.
Welcome.
I'm sure this is not the best interview ever, but we're working on it. We're figuring it out.
Well, this is my first one. So as far as I'm concerned, it is the best interview ever.
Okay, I'll take it. Christine. Renee, do you have any books? I think currently is what Christine's wondering.
No, I do not have books. I focus mostly on screenplays, so books are not my forte because there's way too much having to describe everything in detail, and I get bored with that. So I do not have any books, but I do have a screenplay that got optioned a year and a half ago that hopefully will be in theaters maybe in the next couple of years.
Ooh.
Maybe.
Okay.
You know, screenwriting is in the film industry is a fickle creature. So you never know.
I've heard things about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I don't have any books. I do have an idea for a book, but maybe someday I'll be able to get to it.
And Christine, depending upon the kind of books you have, I got a lot.
Yes,
this is true.
I've got modern day action thrillers with a kick-ass female Jason Bourne. Basically, that's my Inherit the Throne series, and I've written so many I can't remember what they're all called anymore. And then if you go to Amazon and look Steve DeWinter, you will see pages and pages and pages of results.
Yes.
And that is a link also that should be in the description if I got it right. So
I don't think I gave it to you. Oh, you probably
tracked it down. Yes, I did. I did a little bit of tracking. Don't feel weird. It's fine.
Is that you outside?
No. I swear the heavy breathing you hear is not me. I swear. Oh, there you go. Okay. Excellent. Some more reading material. We're always looking for some of that. Yes, indeed. All right.
So the ones of mine that I highly recommend is Shade Infinity. That was my attempt to write a romance novel. A very failed attempt at a romance novel. It became a near future action thriller with a sex scene.
Huh.
That's all. But is that not what people look for? And then if you like fantasy, A is for Apprentice, which is the first of a 26-book series. But you never wrote the second. B is for Bewitched. Has not been written yet.
It still counts. It still counts.
Now, I did, however, license all 26 letters of the fiery letter for the covers. So I'm ready to go for if I ever write them.
Well, come on, Steve, get on it. I don't have anything else to do.
Yeah, what are you doing? Just hanging out? Come on. People waiting here. There's a whole line out there. No.
You know, I got a lot to do. Netflix doesn't watch itself.
Yeah.
As evidence, there's a little thing that pops up after a few hours going, are you still watching? And somebody's got to go, yes.
Yeah, someone has to press the button that says, yeah. Don't judge me. Okay. I love the memes that come up about that when the screen goes black and the thing comes up saying, are you still watching? And you see a reflection of yourself and you go, ugh. All right, so there you go, Christine. You got some reading material, hopefully, possibly. I think there's quite a few different options that you can choose from. Yeah, see, there you go. You understand. I think, ironically, I think that's what a lot of people, myself included, kind of understand about that whole process is, yeah, we get it. Yep. I've been there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But of course, as I mentioned, these two lovely individuals have far more practice and success in writing than I have thus far. So listen to them. Just listen to them.
Everybody has to start somewhere.
This is true.
Exactly.
It's a little process, as I've said. All right. So is there anything else? Because I don't want to be pushing nobody. Is there anything else that you guys would like to talk about, mention, or anything else? The floor is open.
No.
All right. We've covered a lot here, my friends.
Yes, multitasking. I'm watching Netflix and sitting on the couch. I'm doing several things at once here.
I am also breathing and blinking.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in, Christine. We do appreciate you, of course.
Yes. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
And don't worry. People come in late all the time. And so I'm going to blame YouTube because YouTube is not very good at sending out notifications on time. But that's okay. It's all about rewatch. You can rewatch things. You can re-listen to things. Speaking of multitasking, you can re-listen to this later on if you will wish. It's all up to you. So, with that, we've hit the hour mark. Yes, excellent.
We made it. Whew,
we made it.
5 minutes of content when we started this. I think we've made it.
We have hit the quota for the day. Well done. Yeah, it sounds very interesting from what I have just learned with the rest of you. So, it should be fun. And in the meantime, like I said, we have the Babysitter at the very least to have some fun with.
And when Renee gets the next one to us and we produce that one, I'll reach out to you again, Dice.
All right, cool. I will look forward to that for a very, very interesting story from what I can gather here. And like I said, get my mom involved.
Yes, for the
I've got a new thing for you. Here you go.
Sooner than the next horror one will be the murder mystery.
Yes.
Okay. There you are. But there will be more horror, more stories, more. I'm sure a variety of things. So if you're, for whatever reason, if you're on this channel and you're not into horror, first of all, hi, are you okay? Did you get lost? But if you have other interests, as I'm sure we all do, then there's other options. So,
yes, I'm sorry you're here. Pop culture's just to your left.
Yes. We have other things. Don't worry, there are other people. It's okay.
No, just stand right here on the red X.
Yes.
No, I'm just holding this rope for no reason.
Stay on the line. We will transfer you shortly. So, thank you, both Steve and Renee, for coming on here and reaching out. I do appreciate that, and giving me and everybody else the chance to check out this magnum opus, if you will, of a story that you've created for all of us to enjoy.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. We're glad to be here. This was a lot of fun.
We do aim, if nothing else, we do aim to be amusing and maybe slightly educational. Just slightly.
I really, really love the intro that you had for this. That guy clawing his way out of the grave. That was awesome.
That's quite fun. And like I said, that all credit for that, because I did not make that. All credit for that goes to my dear friend CP, or Willis Greedia. He's very good about presentation and everything, and just said, "Hey, would you mind if I made an intro?" I'm like, "Sure." Okay. Why not? And came up with that. I'm like, "Cool. You don't have to use it. I'm using it."
Yeah.
Are you kidding? So with that, I will say thank you once again to my guests. Thank you to everybody in the chat who tuned in, and everybody after the fact who decided they wanted to check this out. And Christine, I appreciate you. Bless you. Yes, shout out to William. And everybody else who popped in. One moment, let me see. Scroll up. Thank you. Katie, I know you were here. DMC, bless you. D October. And we'll see what the next live stream shall be. We never know. It'll be fun. I promise it'll probably be fun. So, thank you for tuning in. Make sure, once again, to check out the links in the description. There's not too many, but there's a few different places you can go to check out the content and the creation and the work that has been provided by these lovely individuals. And with that, I say goodbye. Now everybody wait for about 20 seconds until this thing ends. There you go. Fervent, frantic. Like someone should call up